Thank you, Brent. And now our final speaker of the day is going to be Doug Comstock. He's our Director for Partnership Innovation and Commercial Space in the Office of the Chief Technologist. Doug?
Thanks, Dave. Anybody awake out there? Well, we're ahead of schedule, so that means I get to talk for 90 minutes, right? Well, things are going great. It's just a wonderful program that we're talking about here today, and I hope that you all got some of the contagious excitement from the folks that are working this. And I think it'll be a great day tomorrow. And I want to talk as sort of the cleanup speaker today about partnerships, innovation, and commercial space. A lot of the things that we're doing now under the Innovative Partnerships Program, and you heard about a number of those elements and how they've moved into some of the divisions, but this is some of the core partnership activity, the technology transfer activity, moving NASA technology out, looking for other commercial applications that's continuing under OCT. And so the little shaded box there, partnerships, innovation, and commercial space, is where we're going to be addressing these things. And we'll be supporting activities across the board within OCT, looking for partnership opportunities for all the 10 programs you heard about, and also looking for opportunities across the agency to identify technologies that have opportunity for commercialization, looking for technology transfer opportunities for those technologies, and moving those into the marketplace. So let me start off with just a little summary of what I'm going to be talking about today. In terms of partnerships, and you heard from Bobby earlier today, partnerships are really an integral part of the overall NASA strategy for reinvigorating technology and innovation. And what we're looking for through partnerships are leveraging the technology investments from other government agencies, from industry, and tapping into the expertise in the academic community as well. And we want to engage universities and look for ways to inspire students to get into STEM education and career paths. And we heard a lot of great opportunities for doing those kind of things through the range of programs. We want to make sure that we're connected with R&D going on in industry, not only in the aerospace industry, but adjacent industries that maybe work in similar technology challenges that could be relevant to NASA, and look for opportunities in partnership in those industries. Also provide access to NASA facilities and NASA expertise to industry to further develop areas of common technology interest. And also look at standards and use that as a way to help increase access to NASA. And in terms of innovation, the key thing we want to focus on there is improving the way that we can exchange ideas between NASA and other elements of the country, and try to tap into the best sources of innovation that are out there, not just in NASA, not just in the aerospace industry, but in other industries, and then, as you heard from Andy, our citizen inventors that may have the great ideas in the garage or on the kitchen table. And some of the ways that we are trying to do this are through innovation ambassadors. This is a program where we take civil servants within NASA and we select them on a competitive basis to go out and spend some time in innovative organizations around the country. It could be companies, it could be other government agencies, it could be universities, but places that are doing really innovative things that we can learn from. We can help create partnerships with them, and they can bring some of those ideas back into NASA so that we can continue to ratchet up what we're doing in terms of innovation. Another thing that we can do there is what we call innovation scouts, where these aren't focused so much on the individual, but more on groups of experts that can get together from NASA, then go out and meet with other technical experts who are working common technology issues, but it may be in a different industry. One example could be NASA robotics experts meeting with robotics experts in the automotive industry. And we just recently heard a couple of great partnerships between NASA and General Motors and also Chrysler on doing this very kind of thing. So it's looking at targeted areas where we can reach out and develop some synergies in other industries that have common technology interests with the things that we're pursuing. Another area is entrepreneurs in residence, where we can bring entrepreneurs into NASA and build on their recent experience and bring some of that expertise to the NASA centers to help identify business cases for promising NASA technologies and transfer some of their expertise to the folks in the NASA centers. And another thing that we're planning to do is initiate NASA Tech Talks, where we're going to bring leading experts in innovation and other technical areas into the agency and share some of their expertise with folks in NASA. And the third area is in commercial space, and we've heard a lot about this. And OCT will be working with entrepreneurs across the aerospace industry in big businesses and small businesses and new businesses to enable commercial space capabilities. And we plan to be doing this in a way similar to the way that NASA's predecessor, NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, worked with the early aeronautics industry. And NACA played an instrumental role in developing the kind of environment in the U.S. that helped the aviation industry flourish. And to the point now where it's really the biggest positive ledger on the balance of trade with regard to our exports. Another thing is seeking opportunities to leverage other activities within NASA, like ISS as a national lab, and we're also coordinating our efforts with COTS and the CCDEV programs. So I'll talk in more specifics about each of these program areas now. But first, let me just say a few words about what we mean when we talk about innovation and when we talk about partnerships. And with innovation, and we heard this before today, but we're talking about risk-taking and failure tolerance and learning by doing. And I think following up Brant talking about Edison and Franklin, Edison, I think, was famous for saying, you know, he tried about 1,000 different techniques for the light bulb, and each one that didn't work wasn't a failure, but he learned from that and eventually led to the successful one. And what we want to do is create a culture that's not afraid to fail, but learns from it and builds on it for the successes that we're looking for. Another key thing on innovation is building networks and making connections, and recognizing that innovation isn't just about technology, but may, in some cases, more importantly, be about applying new technology or applying existing technology in new ways, or applying new processes and business models to bringing people together and creating new applications of technology. And as you can see in the Venn diagram there, talking about innovation and partnerships, some of the things that we try to do are look at the sweet spot where we have a overlap and a convergence of national needs with NASA needs and the available expertise that we have to bring these things together to address some of our challenges and some of the national challenges that we have. And in partnerships, we try to seek out partners who have common interests, and we look at partnerships that can maximize mutual benefit, where we look for partners who have skin in the game, where they have investment and they're bringing resources, they have research that they've already completed, and NASA, of course, will bring resources and expertise to the partnership. But there's a common area of interest that all the partners involved will benefit from. And as I mentioned earlier, we can seek out adjacent markets with industries that have common technology interests and look for economies of scale in some of these technology investments. And we also want to welcome non-traditional partners and look for innovation from new places and bringing fresh perspectives to the kind of things that we're trying to do. And a way to think about innovation in a nutshell is to say we're trying to match technology needs with technology capabilities. And the match sort of goes both ways. In some cases, we're trying to reach out to external innovation and bring that into NASA to help address our problems. And at the same time, we're also looking at the technology solutions that we've developed to meet our needs in space and aeronautics and look for other commercial applications for that. So we're looking to move technology in both directions and matching these needs and capabilities. I'd like to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and innovation. And this morning you heard from Tom Khalil, who was instrumental in this strategy from the White House, the National Economic Council, and the Office of Science and Technology Policy that was released last year. It emphasized how important innovation-based entrepreneurship is for encouraging high growth in the economy. And in the white paper that they published talking about entrepreneurship, they recognized what an important role entrepreneurship had played in the U.S. economic growth and how important it was going forward. And as you heard from Tom this morning, NASA is a critical component in the innovation engine in America. And as an R&D agency, we're playing a vital role in doing the kind of technology investment that can help generate new ideas, new technologies, new innovations, and lead to the kind of economic growth and prosperity that we're looking for. And the technology and innovation folks at NASA, as you heard from Bobby earlier today, is addressing the response and the feedback from many, many different stakeholders. And it will create a more vital and productive aerospace industry and be relevant to many other national needs in addition to the things that NASA needs for our missions. And those can include health, energy, health, wellness, national security, and other areas. There are a lot of things that the OCT can offer entrepreneurs, and we can bring to the table a wide variety of engagement opportunities and tools. And that's what I'd like to talk about on this chart. There are a lot of benefits that we can bring to potential partners. So this sort of gets at the why are you here today, and why should you care for these things that we're doing? Well, these are some of the things that we can do for you. Of course, we can provide funding or leveraged resources through partnerships, and you heard in the 3 divisions, the 10 programs today, in early stage, game-changing, and cross-cutting, the scope and the breadth of the opportunities there, and many of those are looking for partnership, resource leveraging, and shared risk, and the kind of things that we're trying to pursue. Some other areas of interest are technology and software, where you can access through licensing or other partnerships the thousands of technologies and software applications and products that NASA has that are available for transfer. You can also access our test and demonstration facilities and capabilities. NASA has facilities at all 10 of our field centers across the country that have important functions that you may need for some of your research and development, and we want to make those available to you. And also the space environment that you heard about from Bonnie and others, that we want to provide access to increase the maturity of the technology and reduce the risk. Expertise is another important area where you can partner with NASA, get access to that deep technical expertise through these partnerships. And we also want to provide within OCT opportunity to facilitate and really proactively seek partnerships between industry, academia, and the government on these common challenges. And NASA has a long history of transferring technology and partnering, and a lot of this goes back to the very origins of NASA in the Space Act in 1958, where the Congress, in creating NASA, said that we should provide for the widest practical and appropriate dissemination of information concerning its activities and the results thereof. So this has been something from the very beginning, and within NASA we've documented these successes each year in our spinoff publication. Each year we document about 50 of the best spinoffs for the past year, and over the years we've got almost 1,700 now of these spinoffs documented in our database. And there are many different applications that benefit the public from these, from health and medicine to transportation, public safety, environmental, agricultural, industrial productivity, and so on. And the benefits to the public from these technology transfers are in 2 key areas: economic growth and quality of life. And you can see the specifics there. But we're looking for new opportunities to create these kind of benefits and do this through partnerships. And we have a website which I was reminded today that won the Webby Award for the government this past year, NASA Home and City, that if you haven't seen it, I urge you to check it out. It's really easy to find, www.nasa.gov/city. And you can go to that website, and a home will pop up and a city will pop up, and you can go into the home and see where in your bedroom or in your bathroom or in your kitchen there's space technology that you may be using every day. Likewise, in the city, you can go to the grocery store, to the hospital, to the fire station, and so on, and see where space technology really is ubiquitous in our everyday life, but we may not be aware of it. So it's a great tool for connecting with the public of how this technology really has become a part of the fabric of our everyday life and is improving the quality of life. Now, in thinking about partnering with NASA, one of the challenges, well, how do I find technology that may be of interest to me? And we've got a lot of ways to do that. One of the key ways is through NASA Tech Briefs. And if you haven't got one yet, we have copies. Here's what NASA Tech Briefs looks like. We've got copies of this outside, and this is available in print and also available online, and you can subscribe to it. It goes out each month to about 250,000 technologists across the country, reaching literally every industrial sector. And it includes each month several NASA new technologies that have come out of our labs and our research. And each year, NASA develops over 1,000 new technology reports, and the best of those go into to Tech Briefs each month. And with this new infusion of technology investment in R&D, we're expecting to see many more of these new technology reports and new technologies available come out of the program. And the technologies that NASA has produced are searchable, and there are several databases available for this. One is the NASA Tech Finder database at technology.nasa.gov, and you can go in there and search by keyword and look for technologies that may be of interest for your particular application. Another thing that we're doing is working with the National Technology Transfer Center and generating some focused technology databases. And you can see a few examples along the bottom here where it's a compilation of NASA SBR investments over the last several years, DoD SBR investments, technologies that have recently been patented, and a summary of those all in one handy spot related to these particular areas. So the examples here are small spacecraft, navigation, and inflatable structures, and there are many others that are on the database on the website that I have on the bottom there. And another thing that we've done recently as part of a government-wide OpenGov initiative is establishing an RSS feed with new technologies as they come out of NASA. So we're trying to make it easy to get access to what technologies we have out there, so that you can build on the investments that have been made and the technologies that are available for the kind of challenges that you're facing. And I thought I'd just share a couple of examples of some successes that you may be aware of where this has occurred, where licensing and partnerships have helped to enable some important new capabilities. The first one is Ad Astra, who's developing their VASMIR rocket engine, the variable specific impulse magnetoplasma rocket. And this technology was originally licensed from NASA. Franklin Chang Diaz, who was an astronaut, did a lot of work when he was here at NASA. Then he left to start this company. That technology was licensed to him in this new company. There were Space Act agreements put in place to share access to NASA facilities and NASA technical experts to develop this technology. And in fact, Andy Petro, who you heard from earlier today, spent a considerable amount of time there working on this VASMIR rocket. Another example is Bigelow Aerospace, who's developing a business for inflatable structures in space. And this inflatable spacecraft technology had its origins, as Bobby said earlier today, in technology at the Johnson Space Center. So this technology was first licensed to Bigelow from JSC. There were Space Act agreements put into place in conjunction with the license that provided access to NASA's technical expertise, and NASA people went and spent several time working with Bigelow to develop their systems and apply this inflatable spacecraft technology. And NASA's already beginning to see some of the benefits coming back in from this collaboration, where NASA experiments have actually gone and flown on the prototypes that Bigelow has in space. So these are just a couple of examples that you may be aware of, but you may not have been aware of the NASA connections in these, and how through licensing and through partnership we're working with industry to help develop these new innovative capabilities. Another example that I want to share with you is our TecFusion forums, where we're facilitating partnerships for commercial development of technology that has its origins in NASA. And this is something where we try to make a connection between our hundreds of small businesses that we fund through the SBIR, STTR programs you heard about from Carl earlier today, and connect these with large businesses, Fortune 500 companies who have technology interests that can use these innovations and turn those into commercial products. So we've had over 2,000 SBIR developed innovations that we presented to large businesses through these partnerships, and we've had over 230 SBIR funded firms participate in over 20 events that we've had. So a lot of really good partnerships have been formed from that, where basically we try to take the technology from the small businesses and have them partner with these large firms to then take the technology into the marketplace. So an example that I show here is the RCA Air Energy. This is something that was just rolled out at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas earlier this year, and it should be available in October, as I understand it, probably at your local Best Buy or Radio Shack. But this can plug into your iPhone or your BlackBerry, and you'll never need to plug in to charge it again. It just takes the ambient RF energy and converts that into charging energy for your BlackBerry. So I'm probably going to get one when they come out. You may be interested too, but when you see them on the shelf of the Best Buy, what you'll know that many others won't know is that this had its origins in NASA. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about innovation and some new things that we're seeking out in terms of open innovation approaches to try to leverage a wide source of expertise and cast a broad net for innovation. This is a particular experiment that was led by the Space and Life Sciences folks down at JSC, where they worked with Innocentive to create a NASA Innovation Pavilion, which put several challenges out to a really worldwide community of potential solvers, and a network of 200,000 plus experts to help develop solutions for these. And it ended up that a mechanical engineer from Foxborough was awarded $20,000 for a novel compact and resistive exercise device, and a radio frequency engineer from New Hampshire was awarded $30,000 for a method that would improve solar forecasting. And you can see the URL there at the bottom. You can see several of these challenges that were put on this NASA Innovation Pavilion at Innocentive. And I wanted to put this up just to show you the scale of participation that we had from across the globe. And there were challenges from several centers, just a couple of examples here from JSC and Langley. And you can see the range of participation that we've got, and we got some very good solutions, as I just mentioned, from this kind of thing. So it's looking at new tools where we can tap into new ways of innovation that we're looking to explore, and try to pilot those things and then apply those more broadly within the agency. Another thing that we're doing, which we just announced recently, was this X-Hab Academic Innovation Challenge. And we partnered with the Exploration Systems Mission Directorate and JSC and the National Space Grant Foundation to conduct this innovation project. And the idea here is to pit universities together in direct head-to-head competition, but the competition is for technology and innovation as opposed to a football game. And we're trying to, get those same competitive spirits that we have on the athletic field and put those in the field of innovation. So we have the solicitation. It's out right now. A notice of intent is due the 23rd, and then proposals are due on the 20th of August. And we'll select from this solicitation 3 universities or university teams to develop these prototype expandable lofts that would be an inflatable structure on the exploration habitat that's being developed. And they would then bring these prototypes down to JSC next summer. They would compete head-to-head to determine which one has the best solution. And then the one that does have the best would then participate with NASA in the desert research and testing studies next summer. So this is a sort of experiment in this type of innovation that we think will be successful and could lead to other challenges like this. So let me now move on to talking about commercial space and start out with the new national space policy, which I think, as you're all aware, calls for a robust and competitive commercial space sector, and recognizing that it's vital to continued progress in space. And with this new space policy, I think it confirms some of the things that NASA was already pursuing. And we have copies of the commercial space issue of our Technology Innovation magazine out on the table as well, and you can get a copy of that. And there are summaries of a number of different commercial activities underway within NASA. And if you look at those across the board, you can see that there are 3 sort of emerging themes from those that are already underway within NASA and the way that we're engaging with the commercial space community. And the first one is beginning to move towards a relationship with the private sector to one of partner rather than one of contractor. And a partner, you share interests, you have shared risk, and you share ideas and develop technology in a collaborative way. Another area is that the government is moving towards purchase of services rather than purchase of hardware that would be owned and operated by the government. And there's some great stories in this issue. And one example, which was a real innovative approach, was working with Hamilton Sunstrand and developing a spot-A reactor that is now on the space station, or I think it goes up on the next mission. And NASA will then purchase water from that spot-A reactor, but all of the hardware was developed and paid for by Ham Sunstrand, and NASA just pays for the water when it's delivered. So even in a program like Space Station, we're looking at opportunities for this kind of innovation. And another one is creating more opportunities and a broader reach for innovation. We're doing this through things like Centennial Challenges, which you heard about, and things like Open Innovation to try to cast a broad net and really tap into the innovation in ways that we haven't done in the past. So these new ways of dealing with the private sector are sort of a back to the future, where they're consistent with the way NACA worked with the emerging aviation industry. And this approach underscores that we're not so much focused on building a program, but really focused on building an industry. And what we're looking at today is, through these sources of innovation and ideas, what we're looking for are the Wright brothers of the 21st century. And if you recall, the Wright brothers sort of came out of left field with their solution to flight, and there was a world-renowned expert, Sam Langley, who had the full backing of the federal government, the biggest R&D program at the time, but he wasn't successful. But it was the bicycle mechanics from Ohio who were successful with their innovation. So we're trying to cast a broad net and look for those Wright brothers of the 21st century. So in terms of commercial space, I thought I would share just a couple thoughts on what we mean. You get this question a lot, and I think there isn't a single discrete definition for what we mean by commercial space, but I want to introduce this concept and say this provides sort of a framework and a context for understanding what we mean when we say something is a commercial space activity. And there are 2 key factors in this. One is the business practices, and the other is the customer base. And in terms of business practices, the standard approach is having a cost-plus contract where all of the risk is on the government. And if there is cost growth or change orders, then the government takes care of that. And moving towards commercial practices, there is shared risk, where there may be resources shared and risk shared in terms of delivering the research and the product, towards a firm fixed price, where the government just buy something on a firm fixed price basis. And on the other side, in terms of the customers, it's where the government is the only customer to where the government is one of many customers in a sort of an intermediate step, as we're seeing with the COTS and CRS model. The government is an anchor tenant to help spur the creation of the market and the building other markets. So one area in space where things really are truly commercial is in commercial satellites, where the government can buy just as any other customer can buy, like a TV network can buy bandwidth by the yard from the commercial satellites. And they're bought on a firm fixed price basis, and the government is just one of many customers. So when we talk about commercial space, we talk about moving from the lower left quadrant, which is the traditional approach. It's cost plus contract. The government is the only customer, towards the upper right quadrant, where government is one of many customers and things are bought on a firm fixed price basis. And in getting from the lower left to the upper right, there are many different pathways that can be taken. And we're exploring a range of different approaches to get there. But I think this provides a useful context for sort of seeing where we are and where we want to go and different pathways for getting there. I want to share a little bit of information on some of the upcoming activities. I want to talk about an event that we're co-sponsoring with the Air Force Research Lab. There's an annual technology exchange and industry forum focused on commercial space. It's the Commercial Responsive Access to Space Technology Exchange, or CRACE. And this is something where NASA and the Air Force have collaborated, and we're sort of alternating hosting this event. It was hosted by the Air Force last year at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This year the event is going to be at NASA Ames on October 25 to 28. And so I encourage all of you to participate in this. You can see the URL there for getting more information and registering. And some of the things that we try to do at this event are bring together all parts of the aerospace community, large businesses, small businesses, and entrepreneurs, and facilitate technology transfer, try to put together partnerships with a sort of marriage broker services among the firms that may have common interests and skills and technologies that would be of interest. And we've had good success with this in the past, and really looking forward to this year's event and hope to see many of you there later in October. So the things that we're doing in commercial space are working to build and foster new commercial space industries, and one of the key goals that we have in the long term is developing low cost and reliable access to space. And some of the things that we're trying to do to pursue that, which we already have underway, are by purchasing flight opportunities with commercial services. We're doing this for parabolic flights from the Zero G Corporation, as was mentioned earlier, and doing it with the flight opportunities for the suborbital flights. We're looking at trying to create partnerships and open up the kind of capabilities that NASA has available to industry through the CRACE conference. We're developing a commercial RLV technology roadmap in partnership with the Air Force and with the FAA Office of Commercial Space to help us understand what some of the key technology drivers are from the commercial ROV industry, so that we can factor those things into our technology roadmap activities and in our solicitations. And we're also working on a horizontal launch access to space feasibility study. So these are a few things that we have underway now. And I wanted to summarize the importance of some of the investments that we're making in OCT and the relevance to those for economic growth and competitiveness in the U.S. And all these technology investments really are a critical component of America's innovation engine. And we're going to play a vital role in this innovation, help drive future economic prosperity in the U.S. And this is not something that we just came up with, but we're really directly responding to the recommendations of many different external stakeholders. And we're working to foster American industry by creating vital and productive aerospace industry that can not only address NASA's needs, but also the broader needs of the country in energy, health and wellness, national security, and other areas. And the investments in space technology really are an integral part of our national strategy to help stimulate research and innovation, create the next generation, get students excited and interested in STEM careers in science, technology, engineering, and math, and really get that pipeline going for the future. And in the activities that we're doing in partnerships, innovation, and commercial space, we're working to leverage expertise and resources with our partners, open up the capabilities that NASA has, drive new sources and methods of innovation, and work to maximize the benefit to the U.S. from the investments that the taxpayers are making in NASA technology. So I'd like to summarize with offering that if you're interested in partnering with NASA, you've got my contact information here, and we also have chief technologists at all 10 of NASA's field centers, and they're a great point of entry if you want to pursue any of these partnership opportunities at the centers. So this is how you can contact them or contact me at headquarters, and if we can't come up with an answer, we know somebody who can. So with that, let me just leave this up here and see if there are any questions that I can answer. Thank you.
Hi, Doug. I have 2 questions.
Okay.
There's not a breakout session for you tomorrow, so perhaps it's best to ask these now.
Okay.
One of them is as a taxpayer and a patriot, I'd probably represent everybody in this room in saying we want a strong NASA, but not only a strong NASA, a NASA that's full of individuals who do stuff, design and build and test and fly. So the question is, in this discussion about partnership here, how important is it in winning new technology business for people from industry like myself to team with NASA? And in fact, are there paradigms where NASA would be the prime, where NASA would be a subcontractor effectively? How could these relationships work? Have you guys thought that through some, and have you thought what recommendations you might give to people like us in industry?
Well, I would say there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all, but I think there are opportunities for many, many different types of relationships. And we enter into Space Act agreements with many different industries where we're providing NASA expertise to develop the technologies of interest. And we also are partnering with industry to give them access to test facilities. One example that I'll give, and we heard from Neil Milburn earlier in Armadillo, but there's some great partnerships that we've had with them, sort of building on their experience with our Centennial Challenges, where they partnered with JSC and White Sands to go and use the massive test facilities there. And they had a LOX methane engine that they tested at altitude in the simulation there. It's a 1 million horsepower test facility to draw down the atmosphere to simulate at altitude. And that's something that a small business could never do without the huge infrastructure and the real deep technical expertise that NASA has. But at the same time, you know, they had the capability to say, well, let's tweak this combustion chamber a little bit, and so they, you know, made a new one in an afternoon, and the NASA guys were just, what? You know, we typically spend 3 or 6 months analyzing it before, you know, but, you know, they made it and tested it in the afternoon. So this kind of bringing these different kind of capabilities together really provides strengths to both that separately they wouldn't have at all. And so I think what we want to do is encourage partnerships in a range of areas wherever appropriate, and you know, try to seek where we can get the most mutual benefit for both partners.
So if Bobby is making the decision on equal capabilities in industry or NASA, is there going to be a bias in one or the other?
Well, we have a requirement that 70% at a minimum will be competed. And as you heard earlier, it'll be a meritocracy. It'll be based on the best ideas. So it's hard to predict, you know, what's going to come out from that. But there are great ideas from industry and from NASA. But that will be the rule of thumb for most of this. Will be based on merit.
The second question, I don't see Bobby here, is he? Oh, not here. Well, it's more of a general topic, and that's one of cost versus risk. Back in the days of the Cassini program and others like that, we spent a lot of money to reduce risk. And then Dan Golden came along and said the pendulum is going to swing the other way. And indeed, faster, better, cheaper worked for a little while until it didn't work. And now the pendulum is swinging the other way. And I'm wondering, is there a risk aversion on the big flagship missions, maybe, or the big NASA initiatives that we would not have on these technology demonstrators? I mean, it's easy to say, oh, we can live for failures, we can stand failures, and we like to screen out those failures in a test program, but when something fails on flight, it's bad for everybody. So I'm just trying to figure out where you think some of these different programs might go. Thanks.
Well, I think we clearly are going to be taking more risks, and one of the real challenges is in all of the missions that NASA has is the project managers, as they should be, are risk averse, and they don't want to add additional risk to their particular project. But through the programs that we're having here, we're going to be providing opportunities to reduce risk and get past the you can't fly if it hasn't flown situation that so many of the technologies have experienced. And we're looking at having a balanced portfolio that addresses those kind of risks. But we want to take smart risks and have things worked out to the extent we can. And where there are high risk things, we know they're high risk going in, and we're taking those risks intentionally. James?
Yeah, Bobby will be here tomorrow for the panel session, and I think that this is an excellent topic for discussion at the panel session. But in short, the way that I would answer that question is that if you look at the TRL level, there's also dollars that go along with that. The smaller activities at the lower TRLs, there's a lot of room for risk in those, and in fact, there's an expectation that those technologies, many of them won't work out in the end at the very low TRLs. They're ideas. If we don't pursue a lot of out-of-the-box ideas, we're not going to get the game changers of the future. So we have to pursue those, and we understand that there'll be more risk at that level. As you go up in the TRL level, the threshold level of risk that you're willing to take will be reduced. But even at the game-changing level, you're still going to allow for a significant number, percentage-wise, of technologies that don't work out, and that's fine. When you get to the flight demonstrations, orbital flight demonstrations, those are very expensive programs. I mean, Bonnie talked to you about $100 million plus in the 3-year run-out. At that level, we will have a level of need to have risk avoidance. That doesn't mean that the technology can't work. I mean, it may turn out that the technology after demonstration still doesn't work. That's fine. But at least you've done everything you know to make sure that your flight is successful due to that demonstration just because of the cost of the program. But we could talk about that a lot more tomorrow. And I think it's a fair point of discussion. It's a great topic for the panel tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's a great topic for those that want to go to all the sessions in the particular areas, whether that's game-changing or cross-cutting, and ask the PEs in those areas that kind of a question. That's perfect. That's what we need to do tomorrow to get your inputs in those areas.
Yep.
Hi. Paul Secor with the NASA Minority Innovation Challenges Institute, operated by FAMU, Florida A&M. We're trying to get minority students engaged in NASA's technical challenges, and saw that InnoCentive, I guess, seems like a great opportunities for universities to sink their teeth into kind of a mini challenge. So I wanted to ask you about the plans for 2011 with an InnoCentive, and then also how does the Rice Business Plan Contest fold in with the IPP office, and is there an opportunity there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the Rice Business Plan, that's something that has been co-sponsored by JSC and the IPP office there. And so we have been participating in that. We've seen some very good innovations come out of that. And with regard to InnoCintiv, we're evaluating the results of this pilot and looking for more opportunities going forward, but I think the results have been very favorable so far. And in fact, we're beginning right now to look at another application with InnoCintiv that is looking internal to NASA. It's called InnoCintiv at Work, the way it's been applied in many different corporations, and we're, I think, going to be calling it InnoCintiv at NASA. But the idea is to put challenges out to the NASA workforce to draw some of that innovation. And we'll be looking for more opportunities like the X-Hab challenge to universities, and look at these new sources and open innovation tools across a whole host of universities, certainly including minority institutions, like you mentioned, Paul. Any other questions?
Healy from NASA Langley, and this again may be more appropriate for the panel discussion tomorrow, but as I watched all the different presentations today, and each time it was, we're going to compete here, and then if you succeed, then you can get to compete here, and then if you succeed there, as you go through the TR level, you get to compete here, and so on. And so I'm not at all afraid of competition, and I think it has many benefits, one of which it makes you bring your best game forward, if you will, the best you can. However, it also slows down if you have a high-performing team that may be from industry or a government agency or academia or any combination of that there too. If you've got something moving in a particular capability that looks very promising, and you stop the team to compete to go from one level of early stage to another, and then you stop them to compete to go from one level of game changing to another, and so on and so forth, then you're breaking the team's momentum several times. And so I'm wondering, is there any possibility, and so I'm relating this to DARPA because I've worked with DARPA for a long time, not at DARPA, but I was many relationships with them. I know that they have processes where if something's very successful, their director jumpstarts it and doesn't recompete it, says if you get here and it meets all its metrics, we're going to go for it. Is there anything like that within NASA, so that within this program, the Chief Technology Office, so that if something's very successful or a very promising study, it doesn't have to recompete after in game changing to go to the next level, and so on and so forth? Because again, you break the momentum of a high performing team when you stop, because these proposals don't take 45 days. These proposals take months before the 45 days that NASA, and oftentimes several $100,000, if not several $1 million to compete. Mm-hmm. So you could be breaking a chain and stopping something that maybe benefit by not doing that.
Well, in game changing and cross-cutting, the requirement is 70% would be competed. So there will be some funds available for some directed programs at the discretion of Bobby ultimately. And so there could be the flexibility to do those kind of things, but I think that's a great topic for the panel discussion tomorrow.
Yeah, none of that was discussed today, so everything that was discussed was the competition, how we're going to compete these, and it wasn't how we're going to select a very promising project from industry or from a government agency to move forward. So I'd be curious to know what that process is and how those decisions are made. Mm-hmm. So. Okay,
that'll be a good one for Bobby tomorrow. But as you point out, the rule of thumb is compete, and this is going to be a meritocracy, and the best technology is going to win. And just another comment on that, as we keep going forward down the line, we'll have to narrow things down. But I think there will be opportunity also for a lot of partnerships among a number of technologies that maybe have their origins in some of the early stage that can then come together to apply these different technologies as a group for some of the game changing and so on. So I think it's not just one technology that goes through and gets narrowed down from the 1,000 or so, but different clusters of technology that work together that can create these partnerships among the various stakeholders in the academic community and industry and in government going forward. Any other questions, or is everybody ready for happy hour? Okay, well, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow.